Hello, my sweet summer children. I'm back with some juice to get you through the long night. And today I have brought someone with me all the way from the United Kingdom. Thanks for coming, and let the sweet summer squad know where they can find you.
I'm Gemma from Secrets of the Citadel on YouTube. I'm at Citadel Secrets on Twitter. I'm Citadel Secrets of the Citadel on Instagram. There's so many tags to remember. And I'm Gemma Stark on Facebook. You can find me on any of those. I'm just really, really pleased that we've finally got our together to get together to do this, because we've been talking about this for literally about a year, haven't we? And we just keep tossing back ideas back and forth, and eventually we said, look, let's just pick something and do this, okay? And we're here and we're doing it, so I'm delighted.
And I think you guys are really going to like this one, because out of all the questions I'm ever asked, these are the most asked questions ever. And it's, what do the White Walkers want? What moves them? What's their motivations? All kinds of White Walker juice. And I think we should start out addressing like the differences between the book canon White Walkers and the show, just so there's like no confusion.
Yeah, absolutely, because they are quite different, aren't they? I mean, there's no two ways about that. We did actually put this out on Twitter and on Patreon, and we got some questions and things. And one of the questions actually kind of relates to these differences, and it's from Sir Fief Horsebane, who says, George R. R. Martin describes the others as strange, beautiful, elegant, dangerous inhumans that wear reflective camouflaging armor. Their movements are lightning quick and graceful. So how do we end up with a face like this? A face only a mother could love, am I right? And then he's posted a picture of the show White Walker, which doesn't look like George R. R. Martin's description, okay?
Right. So the White Walkers are actually beautiful. I would describe them as Targaryen-like, but on the show, I think they're trying to convey a message that these aren't good people. These are the big bad, so we have to make them scary.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely... George R. R. Martin's described them as the she, but made from ice, which is like an elven creature, for, just to summarize that as succinctly as possible. So very agile, graceful, beautiful even, but in a very strange and jarring kind of way. But I do love that almost Targaryen/Valerian look, but in ice, like this opposing force to the ice and fire, isn't it?
Yes, I agree with that. And I think of them like, when he describes them as the she, I think of them like the elves from Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
But ice.
Yeah, exactly. And they, originally, like in the prologue, the first few times in season 2 as well, they were pretty much naked, weren't they? I mean, just with pants on or whatever. And as the seasons have progressed, they've suited up more and more, haven't they? But they certainly wear camouflage, like reflective, almost translucent blue ice armor in the books. Yeah, they're very different.
It's very magical. Like, their armor has a magical property to it. It kind of changes. It changes, like it's like chameleon armor. Like if they were standing next to a tree, they would blend right in. Like, you can't see them unless they want you to see them, because Tormund actually describes them as the mist.
That's right, he does, yes.
So, like, he can't even, like, he's basically saying, like, we can't even see them to fight them.
No, I mean, your first indication, at least in the books, would be the cold, wouldn't it? Because they bring the cold with them, and that is very literal in the books. The whole area will frost up and ice up, and in the show, they show that with the icy breath that the characters, that ominous. But can you remember when we saw the trailers for season 7 and we saw Arya Stark and she breathed out an icy breath and we all freaked out because we thought she was close to the White Walkers, and she wasn't. She was just cold. But
I was going frame by frame through that. And the Long Walk teaser, when Cersei did it, I was going frame by frame through that. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, and that sprung up all of and I did a video on it, the Night Queen theories, and I'm still sold. Cersei's my Night Queen. We'll talk about her later, not Cersei, the Night Queen.
The Night Queen, yes. So there are some differences. Like, of course, some of the things that we've seen happen in the show have not happened in the books pertaining to the White Walkers. Like the lake attack, that hasn't happened in the books. Hardhome, yeah, we don't see Hardhome. We just see that creepy letter.
Yes. So there's, and actually that's one of, you know me, I'm very much a book snob at heart. I love the show, but there are a few instances where I really do appreciate the show changes that were made, and Hardhome for me was one of them. That was a terrifying delight.
Yes.
To watch that. I'm pleased that they showed us that in the way that they did. And really, that was our first proper introduction to the Night King. I mean, we'd seen him before when he took the baby and traveled to the lands of Always Winter, but that was the first time we really saw him. And of course, that Jon Snow Night King standoff was just awesome. The meme.
Yeah. So do you think that the Night King is specifically after Jon? What's up with all these Jon stare downs between the Night King and Jon?
This relates to another question from Sir Fief Horsebane, weirdly enough. Now, we do have many questions from people that are not Sir Fief Horsebane, just to clarify that. But this just so happened to be, why is the Night King stalking Jon so hard? Like, it's getting weird.
Well, I know that I have the belief that even in the books that in the prologue that Waymar Royce is mistaken for Jon Snow.
Yes.
That's my belief. And I don't know if it's because he's the prince that was promised or if it's because he was Azor Ahai. I lean more towards Daenerys being Azor Ahai. I don't even want to get into that. That could probably go on for days and days and days about who is Azor Ahai. I also think the Night King could be Azor Ahai, but I don't know why they're stalking Jon.
But like you said, that prologue, there is certainly, and if you really pick apart that prologue, there is certainly a suggestion that they are looking for something very specific. And when they recognize that Waymar Royce is not what they're looking for, they literally laugh at him.
And butcher him.
Yeah.
But yeah. They were mocking him before they butchered him. Like yes. They did a little duel with him, like a one-on-one.
Yeah, it was like a cautious approach, wasn't it? A cautious approach. Then there seemed to be a moment of realization. You're not the one we're looking for. This is not the man of the Night's Watch we're looking for. And then it was mockery and butchery.
Yes. And it's if you haven't read the books, the specific things that lead people to think that the Night King the Night King, Lord have mercy, the White Walkers were specifically targeting Waymar Royce is because they didn't kill Garrett and they didn't kill Will either. Will was actually killed by Waymar Royce coming back as a white. And also, so they only killed Waymar. They specifically targeted him. And Waymar had this really ornament sword. It was really castle forged, brand new, jeweled hilt. He looked like a high lord. He looked like a high lord. He had a war horse out there. Like all of them have small garrons, and he comes out with like a war horse, full-blown war horse in the woods, and a long sable cloak, and he had the moleskin gloves.
He could have potentially been a Stark, couldn't he?
Yes.
Something that required closer inspection, and that seems to be the suggestion. And this leads us to the initial question: what's going on with Jon? And I think it's a threefold answer. And of course, this is all speculation because we don't know. But when the Night King in the show is doing that amazing standoff with Jon, I think, and then of course in season 7 we've had some bit hardball stare-offs going on as well between Jon and the Night King. Now this could be irritation. I mean, Jon's just killed a White Walker at Hardhome. He's also in the process exposed Valyrian steel as a weapon that can be used against the White Walker, so the Night King could just be peed off. Is he viewing Jon as a challenge for those same reasons, or is it recognition?
It could be recognition. Now, I'm gonna say something crazy here. Now, I think the Night King is a green seer, so I think he has all of the access to all the weirwood net. So everything that Bran knows, he knows. And the White Walkers or the Night King could have prophecy, just like we are interpreting prophecy. And they could think that Jon is the prince who was promised, or Jon is the last hero, or something from legend that they need to destroy. But I feel like he's not coming for. He didn't come for Jon as hard as he came for Bran. I feel like he came for Bran way harder.
He did. That's the thing. And so that this recognition could be a recognition of blood, as in Stark blood, and that, like you said, would in turn lead ultimately not to Jon but to Bran.
Yep.
But yeah, I think
Waymar had that too. Waymar had first man blood.
I think we're kind of we're led into this false assumption. I mean, again, speculation that this is going to end up in this all-out war between Jon and the Night King. But I've always felt that the true war is going to be this battle of the minds between the Night King and Bran, because there is something really serious there, isn't there? Like you said, he came hard for Bran.
Hard for Bran. And Benjen told Bran, the Night King is coming and you will be ready for him.
Yeah.
So I think it's Bran too. And I feel like the Night King, he looks at Jon, he looks at him, he stares him down, but the Night King tried to kill Bran. He tried to kill Bran.
Yeah. Yeah, he didn't just mark him and see him in his vision. Within moments of marking him, he then went straight at him, didn't he? And he killed Bloodraven, or the Three-Eyed Crow, or whoever he is on the show. Finished off the children. Poor Hodor. I mean, I still can't even with that scene.
Hodor joked that he might be coming back. He's leaving it open.
We met Sam Coleman at Con of Thrones, and he is just such a gorgeous guy, and he did hold the door for us, which was phenomenal.
That's so sweet.
But this Stark blood thing, I mean, when we say, are we assuming, is this some kind of vampiric sniffing out kind of skill that the Night King has? Not necessarily. I mean, we know throughout the text, and this is also reinforced repeatedly in the show as well, that Jon Snow looks like a Stark. He has a very, you wouldn't need to sniff his Stark blood to recognize him. Cranston recognizes him as a Stark. The wildlings recognize him as a Stark. Catelyn's Tully is not amused that Jon looks more like a Stark than the trueborn Stark children, and this is both book and show. So one look at Jon, if you know what you're looking for. So he's a Stark. Yeah, exactly.
And Waymar, his description matches Jon's.
It does.
Or is it Rob's? One of them.
Yeah, like you said, he's got the fancy sword, he's got the horse, he's got the cloak and the gloves, and that description for Waymar is really
close. It's like almost identical.
It's almost identical. And George R. Martin has clearly gone to great pains to give us a very specific and detailed description at that moment.
Yeah, I think it's one of the most important chapters in the book, the prologue of A Game of Thrones.
Yes, I think it says everything. Important. I think it says everything we need to know about the White Walkers. Well, I mean, they're predominantly called the others in the books, but they are referred to as the White Walkers as well. I think the show went predominantly for White Walkers rather than others, so we didn't get confused with Lost.
Yeah, Definitely.
So this question is from Kaylin McGlory. What do you think the Night King has to do with the pact? Since he was made after the wars were done, if you look at the timeline closely. Now, that's one question, and we're going to come back to that later. But for now, what has the Night King / the White Walkers been doing all of this time, as in the time before he started collecting Craster's sons? Now, this is a huge question, isn't it? This is absolutely... I've tried to answer this repeatedly in theory videos. I thought I had it down. I was 100% convinced that it was Summerhall.
Really?
A lot of people have said the birth of Jon and Dany. A lot of people have said magic and dragons coming back. But I've traced back the very recent timelines. You know, when were the first sightings? And bearing in mind that the White Walkers seem to be pretty slow, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, very slow.
They were clearly biding their time for something, weren't they? And in the show, I think it's been revealed what that was. But for me, I went a while back. I was so convinced it was Summerhall, and I was utterly, and I still am actually, convinced that Aegon V did hatch dragons at Summerhall. And then the attempt was sabotaged in some way. The baby dragons are very easy to kill or potentially even hide, but I actually think Aegon V's attempts to hatch dragons was successful, and then it all went horrendously wrong, and everybody died, because this is Game of Thrones.
Yes.
But this is how this is going to come back round to Bran. Now, we say, the birth of Jon and Dany, blah, blah. What about the birth of Bran Stark, who was born at the height of summer? So that would suggest that since the moment of his birth, it's been getting colder and colder.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So have they been waiting thousands of years for Bran to be born so he can lead them, join them, beat them? I mean, the humans, did they break a treaty? And have they been replenishing numbers, preparing for attacks since waiting for Bran?
Well, there's a lot of things that could tie into that, because in the World of Ice and Fire app, there is a quote that specifically says that Blood Raven was waiting for Bran's birth. About the Summerhall thing. So I did a video, it was one of my very first videos, and it was about Bran's visions when Bran has in Dance of Dragons, when he sees through the heart tree in Winterfell.
Yes.
The first thing he sees is Ned cleaning ice after he's beheaded the deserter.
Yeah.
So right there, we know the White Walkers are back.
Yes.
We know they're back at that point. The thing he sees before that is Ned Stark praying that Catelyn can forgive him, and basically praying that Jon and Robb grow up as close as brothers.
So this is around the time of Jon's birth.
Around the time of Jon's birth. And then there is a pregnant lady
in Winterfell
emerging from a pool.
Yeah.
And then right before that, there's a lady standing on her tippy toes to kiss a knight as tall as Hodor.
Yes.
That knight is probably Sir Duncan the Tall.
And Old Nan.
And Old Nan.
Yes.
But Sir Duncan the Tall died at Summerhall.
Yes.
So, and then if we go back even further, we see the breaking Brandon Snow breaking the branches, the weirwood branches, and carving them into arrows for Aegon's dragons.
Aegon's conquest, yeah.
So it seems like a lot of these visions have something to do with dragons. But the last vision that he sees the Kings of Winter, and then he sees this woman with white hair and a bronze sickle sacrifice a captive.
Which sounds like the Night Queen.
Right. So are they showing us why the White Walkers came back in those visions? like step by step. It started with Aegon's conquest. And then it came about to Summerhall. And then whatever this pregnant woman emerging from the pool, which I think is Old Nan.
Yeah.
And then I don't know who's the son that is avenging her. Is it one of the sons that died in war? Was she pregnant?
This was the problem that I had with the Summerhall theory. Now, I do believe that Aegon V hatched dragons, but that's a separate issue. Because my original theory was on the premise that the return of dragons, albeit very briefly during Summerhall, was the thing that triggered the White Walkers back into action. But then it occurred to me that, of course, 300 years ago, and then for the preceding 153 years after that, there was plenty of dragons in Westeros, a lot of dragons flying around doing all sorts of stuff. And then prior to that, there was plenty of dragons in the Freehold of Valyria. So my theory kind of fell flat. Whether Aegon V hatched them or not, it didn't seem to really tie in with the White Walkers at that moment. But of course, the birth of Rhaegar could have.
That could have. But do you think that they're like these kind of opposite things? Like they balance each other. So if there are a whole bunch of dragons in the world, then the Night King is kind of in check. They're like, I don't know how you would explain it, but they can't grow.
Yeah, possibly. That because this is a story of balance and opposing forces, isn't it? It's a song of ice and fire. So to dismiss any connections between them is silly, really. I mean, we might not have all of the answers, but we certainly have a lot of theories, don't we?
Yes, we do. And like, I think that the dragons, that Daenerys was able to bring about the birth of dragons because the Night King was mobilized and forming an army.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of people suggest that the dragons being born was what brought the White Walkers, and I'm with you. I think it's the other way around.
Do you think the Night King is pure evil?
No. This is your name, isn't it? This is the grey area, of Game of Thrones. I mean, and the thing is, again, this is speculation. But when we say speculation, I mean, I'd like to think that people that watched our videos didn't assume that our speculation was just guesswork. I mean, this is all based very much on this intimate understanding that we have of this text. And the reason why I think, and I know you agree with me on this, that the Night King is also falling into this grey area category, is because every single character, with the exception of probably Joffrey and Ramsay, but even they have their reasons, arguably.
Yes.
They, look at Jaime Lannister and how we felt about him in episode 1, and now we all love the guy,
Yeah.
And this, why would we assume that of all these characters that fall into this grey area category, that the Night King or the White Walkers wouldn't too?
Yeah, I think we're definitely gonna feel some kind of empathy for the Night King, because let's just say, like, what happened in the show. Let's just take that for an example. They took him and tied him up to a tree. Let's just say that it's canon. Everything's canon. They took him and tied him up to a tree, and they shoved dragonglass in his heart, made him a freezing cold zombie that just walks around mad as shit at everyone. And so they created him, I think, to kill men.
Yes,
that was
like a weapon of war.
A weapon of war. And they used a real person to do this. Mm-hmm. And they created him. And when the war was won, they discarded him and made peace with the people that he was created to defeat.
That he was originally one of. fairly safe to say that he was an unwilling participant in all of that. You know,
right.
he was gagged and bound and screaming. And
Exactly. And you have to feel sorry for him. Like, you never see him with no woman. You never see him with a lady. He doesn't have a queen that we know of. Yeah, that brings me to another question. Why are all the White Walkers on the show male?